I've always been the woman who goes unnoticed in the room. The one who serves the coffee, smiles politely, and nods along. At least that's how the Matthews family sees me. Tonight was no different. I sit at the dining table in my in-laws' mansion while my husband, Richard, as always, dominates the conversation. Emma works at the same bank I do, but in a much simpler department, Richard comments, placing his red wine glass on the table. She handles basic paperwork. Nothing that requires a lot of financial knowledge. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like to get access to more stories like this. Barbara, my mother-in-law, gives me that pitying look I know so well. Dear, you should be thankful every day that Richard even took an interest in you. How many secretaries get lucky enough to marry an executive? I bite my lip slightly and keep smiling. 5 years of marriage, 5 years of hearing variations of this same speech. William, my father-in-law, clears his throat. Richard always had a knack for numbers. Back in school, everyone knew he was going to go far. He cuts a piece of meat. It's in the genes. The Matthews have business in their blood. Sarah, my sister-in-law, leans over the table. Emma, do you know anything about the stock market? Richard told me he tried explaining it to you once and you were completely lost. I never said that to Richard. But he agrees, laughing. It was hilarious. I showed her how a simple stock chart worked and I saw the exact moment her eyes glazed over. Everyone laughs. I laugh too, but for completely different reasons. Back at our apartment, Richard is already asleep. I quietly enter the office, unlocking my laptop with a password he never imagined I could create. I open the encrypted files that document every fraudulent transaction he carried out over the last 3 years. On the screen, I see financial reports, transfers to offshore accounts, records of secret meetings. Richard doesn't know it, but every misstep of his has been carefully documented. Every diverted penny, recorded. Every meeting with his assistant Jennifer, photographed. I get a text message, transfer to Panama confirmed. Amount, 2.3 million. Signed, RM. It's Michael, my true assistant at the bank. Loyal, efficient, discreet. Few know that I have been the CEO of Atlantic Trust Bank for 4 years. I deliberately keep a low profile. In the hallway, I'm just Emma from accounting to most of the employees. In New York's high financial circles, I'm known only as EW, initials that hide my identity even from my closest collaborators. Richard works for me without knowing it. He was put in a position where he could show his true colors, and he did not disappoint. The trap had been set for years, just waiting for the right moment. The next morning, Richard leaves for work before me, as usual. I have an important meeting today, he says, adjusting his tie. Don't wait up for dinner. I know exactly where he's going. It's not a meeting. He's meeting Jennifer at a downtown hotel to discuss the final details of his escape. They plan to disappear in 3 days with the money he stole from the bank, my bank. I arrive at the office an hour later, entering through the private garage. I take the executive elevator straight up to the 40th floor, where my real office is. The glass walls give me a view of the entire city. Michael is waiting with coffee. He just arrived at the hotel, he informs me, showing me the location on his phone. Jennifer is recording everything. Jennifer Collins isn't really Richard's infatuated assistant. She's the head of bank security, a former federal agent who works directly for me. For 20 months, she pretended to be his mistress, gathering evidence, earning his trust, feeding his ego. That night, while Richard continues his important meeting, I organize the final documents. Tomorrow is the day. The board meeting will be at 10 a.m. to discuss the next regional leadership of the bank. Richard believes he'll be promoted. Little does he know that it will be the first time he sees his wife as CEO. My phone rings. It's Barbara, my mother-in-law. Emma, dear, William and I would like to attend the meeting remotely tomorrow. Richard told us about your likely promotion. Perfect. Of course, Barbara. I'll send you the link. After hanging up, I also contact Sarah. A complete family meeting, to witness the moment that will change everything. I meticulously review every detail of the plan. The fraudulent transfers, the communication records, the embezzled funds, the forged signatures. Everything documented, everything ready. Morning comes for the meeting. Richard is exceptionally excited. He puts on his best suit, the one he keeps for special occasions. He practices his acceptance speech in front of the mirror. "I need to get here early today," he says. "I have to prep some things before the meeting." "I have important commitments too," I reply. He doesn't even ask what they are. He never asks. I arrive at the bank 40 minutes before the meeting. Michael updates me. Richard is in his office, nervous, going over his speech. Jennifer confirms that his suitcases are already packed at home, hidden in the back of the closet. Tickets booked to the Bahamas under false names. The board members start arriving. 12 men and women who run one of the largest banks in the country with me. Everyone knows who I am. Everyone knows what will happen today. The Matthews family is online, anxiously waiting to witness Richard's big moment. They have no idea what kind of moment it will be. I adjust my suit, pull my hair into a firm bun, and put on the glasses I usually don't wear at home. Michael hands me a red folder. Inside it, Richard's future. "Are you ready, Mrs. Wilson?" I take a deep breath. 5 years of patience, documentation, and waiting come to an end today. I'm ready. The meeting room on the 40th floor overlooks all of Manhattan. The glass walls reflect the blue sky while the board members take their seats at the mahogany oval table. Richard is seated near the head, smiling with that overconfident look that always characterized him. He adjusts his tie and discreetly rehearses his acceptance speech under his breath. He doesn't notice the exchanged glances among the other executives. On the big screen on the wall, I see the video conference windows. Barbara and William appear in their luxurious living room, champagne glasses already ready for celebration. Sarah is in her office, equally anxious. No one notices when I enter through the side door, the door reserved for the CEO. "Good morning, everyone," I say with the calm, firm voice I never use at home. "Let's begin our quarterly board meeting." Richard frowns, confusion evident on his face. He looks toward the main door, expecting the CEO, a man in his imagination, to walk in at any moment. I see the realization slowly forming in his eyes as I walk to the head of the table and place my folder there. For those of you joining remotely and who may not know me in this capacity, I'm Emma Wilson, CEO of Atlantic Trust Bank for 4 years now. The silence is absolute. On the screen, I see Barbara choke on her champagne glass. William turns pale. Sarah is speechless. But it is Richard's expression that grabs all my attention, a mix of confusion, disbelief, and the onset of panic. "Emma, what does this mean?" he murmurs, unable to process the reality before him. "It means, Richard, that you work for me." I calmly open the red folder with carefully rehearsed composure. "Before we discuss the quarterly projections, we have an urgent security matter. In the last 3 years, we detected an elaborate scheme of fraud and embezzlement." The screens around the room light up, showing graphs, documents, and photos. Bank transfers, forged signatures, offshore accounts. Richard's face in secret meetings. Hotel reservations records. As you can see from the documents in front of you, Mr. Matthews diverted approximately $17 million over the past 3 years. We have evidence that he planned to leave the country in 72 hours. On the screen, William tries to interject. "There must be some mistake. My son would never." "Your son," I interrupt firmly, "was recorded confessing these crimes." "Jennifer, please." Jennifer turns on the audio. Richard's voice fills the room. "When we transfer the last batch, we'll be free. Those idiots will never find out. Especially that silly wife of mine." The words hang in the air like toxic smoke. All eyes turn toward Richard, whose face now alternates between deathly pallor and deep red. "Emma," he whispers, trying to find a way out, "I can explain." "The explanation is in the documents, Richard." I keep my voice completely controlled. "Just like the records I sent to the authorities this morning. This bank will adhere to complete transparency in this matter." I gesture to Michael, who was discreetly positioned near the door. 2 security guards quietly enter the room. "Richard Matthews," I continue, "you are formally fired from Atlantic Trust Bank, effective immediately. These gentlemen will escort you to collect your personal belongings. Your electronic access has already been revoked. The police are waiting for you in the lobby. Richard is escorted out, protesting incoherently. The video conferences remain active. None of the Matthews family had the presence of mind to turn them off. Barbara is in shock, clutching her chest as if in physical pain. William seems to have aged 10 years in 10 minutes. Sarah is completely silent, finally at a loss for words. I calmly reorganize my papers and address the board. I apologize for this interruption. We can now continue with our regular agenda. The meeting goes on as if nothing extraordinary had happened. I present the financial reports, we discuss expansions, we approve new projects. I work with the efficiency and command that brought me to the position of CEO. Throughout, I feel the admiring awe and some apprehensive looks from the board members. No one questions my authority now. 2 hours later, when we wrap up the meeting, I notice that the video conference windows remain open. The Matthews family stayed tuned for the entire meeting, frozen. Barbara, William, Sarah, I say directly to the camera, I see you're still connected. Since you're watching our day so closely, I'd like to invite you to an executive lunch I'm hosting at the Pierre in an hour. It'll be a great opportunity for you to meet my management team. Barbara is the first to regain her voice. Emma, I don't understand why you never told us. You never asked, I reply simply. You never showed the slightest interest in my career. You assumed I was just a secretary who got lucky marrying Richard. William tries to take control of the situation. This is absurd. Richard wouldn't commit fraud. You're making these accusations up. Mr. Matthews, I can assure you that every document shown today has been verified by our legal team and external auditors. The evidence is indisputable. I pause deliberately. But I understand your reaction. It must be hard to find out that your son isn't who you thought he was. Just as it must have been hard for you to discover that I'm not who you presumed. Sarah finally finds her voice. So all this time, when we had dinner together, when we mocked his financial skills, I was the CEO of the bank your brother worked for? Yes. I allow myself a small smile. Ironic, isn't it? Michael approaches quietly, informing me that reporters are starting to gather in the lobby. The news has already leaked, as planned. I have to take this call with the press now, I tell the Matthews family. I hope to see you at lunch. Invitations have already been sent to your phones. I hang up the video conference while I organize my papers. The meeting room gradually empties, the board members greeting me with newfound respect as they leave. Jennifer approaches with her tablet. The police are interrogating Richard now. They found the tickets and the suitcases exactly where we indicated. And the documents in the safe at the house? Recovered. The court order granted full access. I nod, satisfied. Make sure the Matthews family is properly received at the Pierre, in case they decide to show up. And schedule a divorce lawyers meeting for this afternoon. In the executive elevator heading to the lobby, I take a deep breath, preparing to face the press. Years of planning culminating in this day. I adjust my blazer, lift my chin, and feel a freedom I haven't experienced in years. The elevator doors open to a sea of flashes and microphones. Mrs. Wilson, can you confirm Richard Matthews' arrest? Is it true he embezzled millions from the bank? Were you aware from the start? With the posture I always reserve for the office, never for home, I face the cameras directly. Atlantic Trust Bank is fully cooperating with the authorities in this unfortunate case. As CEO, my duty is to protect this institution and its clients. We will spare no effort to recover every diverted penny. 6 months have passed since that morning when everything changed. Fall has arrived, coloring Central Park with shades of amber and red, visible from the windows of my penthouse as I finish the preparations for tonight's dinner. The table is set for 10 people. The bank's top executives and their partners. Michael is overseeing the final details with the buffet service while I adjust the flowers in the center of the table. It's the first time I've hosted colleagues in my home, in our home, which now is all mine since the divorce was finalized in record time. The apartment has been completely redesigned. There's nothing left that reminds me of Richard or the years I spent living as someone I wasn't. The previously beige walls are now a deep blue. The traditional furniture that Barbara helped choose has been replaced by contemporary pieces I've always admired. My phone vibrates with a notification. It's a message from Jennifer with a link to a Wall Street Journal article, Richard Matthews sentenced to 25 years for financial fraud. Below, she wrote, "Justice served. Enjoy your dinner." The doorbell rings. The first guests have arrived. I open the door with a genuine smile, not that polite, contained smile I used for so many years. "Welcome," I say, guiding them inside. "I'm so happy you could come." During dinner, conversation flows naturally. We talk about the bank's new projects, the expansion into Asian markets, changes in the team. No one mentions Richard directly, although the news of his sentencing has certainly reached everyone. "Cheers," proposes Jonathan, our CFO, raising his glass. To Emma, who not only saved the bank from disaster but is taking us to unprecedented heights. The quarterly numbers prove it. Everyone lifts their glasses. I feel a warm sense of satisfaction seeing the genuine respect in their eyes. "And what happened to the Matthews family?" asks Diana, our marketing director, after the wine has lowered the social filter. "Did they really show up for that lunch at the Pierre?" I smile, recalling that day. Barbara and Sarah did show up, yes. William made up an excuse. It was educational for them. What I don't mention is how uncomfortable that lunch was. How Barbara repeatedly tried to explain that she had no idea about my achievements. How Sarah oscillated between apologizing profusely and trying to form a new connection now that I was someone important. How both were politely, but visibly, avoided by the other executives who knew the full story. I also don't mention that I received a long email from Barbara last week, begging for financial help. William's company's shares plummeted when the connection with Richard came to light. They were selling the house. The email is still unanswered in my inbox. "Let's focus on the future," I tell my guests, steering the conversation toward a more positive direction. "We have so much to celebrate and even more to achieve." Later, when the last guest says goodbye, I close the door and let my social mask fall completely. I kick off my heels, pour myself the last glass of wine, and walk out onto the balcony. The city shines below me, millions of lights against the night sky. For the first time in many years, I breathe completely free. I'm no longer Richard's wife. I'm no longer the quiet woman everyone underestimated. I am simply Emma Wilson, CEO. On my own terms, at last. 5 years have passed since that day at the board. Time changed everything, and me, especially. Today I am on stage at the Chicago Convention Center, in front of 2,000 people, mostly aspiring female executives and business owners. The digital sign above me reads, Women's Leadership Conference, Keynote Speech, Emma Wilson, CEO of Atlantic Trust Bank and founder of the Silent Voices program. Power doesn't just come from speaking loudly, I say into the microphone, walking across the stage with the confidence I've built over the years. Sometimes, true power lies in observing, listening, and waiting for the exact moment to act. I see attentive faces in the audience. Women who face every day what I faced, undervaluation, disbelief, underestimation. I share with them not only my personal story but also the strategies I developed, the leadership techniques I refined, and the methods I used to transform Atlantic Trust into the third largest bank in the country. How many of you have been interrupted in meetings? Almost every hand goes up. How many of you had your ideas ignored, only to have them celebrated when repeated by a male colleague? More hands go up. How many of you have been called aggressive for behaviors that, in men, would be described as assertive? A wave of knowing laughter runs through the auditorium. It isn't humor, it's recognition. For years, I was invisible by my own choice. I let others underestimate me because it gave me the freedom to observe, learn, and plan. I turned prejudice into my most powerful weapon. In the front row, I see Melissa, my executive assistant for 3 years, taking notes intently. Next to her is Jennifer, now the corporate security director of Atlantic Trust, who turns down offers from other banks with higher salaries out of loyalty to our shared vision. But I'm not here to say we should remain in the shadows, I continue. I'm here to talk about the balance between strategic patience and decisive action. About knowing when it's time to observe and when it's time to speak up. I tell them about the Silent Voices program, the initiative I founded 2 years after the Richard incident. A program that has already empowered over 5,000 women in corporate positions, providing mentorship, networking, and, crucially, training to turn underestimation into a strategic advantage. 6 of our participants became CEOs in the last 3 years. Dozens reached vice presidential positions. Hundreds were promoted to high-level management. I pause, letting these achievements sink in. And it all started with one simple question: how can we use being underestimated as a lever for success? During the Q&A session after the speech, a young executive raises her hand. Mrs. Wilson, what happened to your ex-husband? Is he still serving his sentence? The question that always comes up. I smile politely. Richard was released 8 months ago, after serving part of his sentence. As far as I know, he works at a small accounting firm in Phoenix. I pause. But my story isn't about Richard. It's about every woman whose voice has been silenced, whose skills questioned, whose potential ignored. Another older woman asks, and your former in-laws? Do you still keep in touch? Rarely, I answer honestly. William Matthews passed away 2 years ago. Barbara lives modestly in Florida. Sarah. I hesitate, then decide to share this detail. Surprisingly, Sarah is now one of the mentors in our program. She went through her own journey of self-discovery after what happened. It's true. Sarah reached out to me 3 years ago, deeply transformed by the experience. She confessed that she had always been envious of the apparent simplicity of my life while struggling with impossible standards from her father. She saw in my revelation not only a humiliation for her family but also a liberation from toxic patterns that had held her captive since childhood. After the conference, at dinner with the organizing team, a Financial Times journalist approaches me. Emma, you built an empire out of your strategic silence. What's your next move? There are rumors about a possible transition into politics. I smile, savoring my wine. I never rule out new challenges. But for now, my focus is on expanding Atlantic Trust internationally and taking the Silent Voices program to emerging markets, starting with Africa and South Asia next year. On the flight back to New York, alone in first class, I review my notes for tomorrow's board meeting. My life now is a series of public achievements, so different from the double life I once led. Even so, I still maintain certain habits. I still observe more than I speak in new situations. I still carefully assess people before revealing my true intentions. And above all, I still value the power of perfect timing, the patience to wait for the exact moment to act. I look out the window of the plane at the night sky and think about how invisibility might paradoxically be the most direct path to truly being seen, not as a reflection of others' expectations, but as the authentic person I always knew I was. Morning dawns clear over Manhattan as I complete my daily ritual. Coffee prepared exactly the way I like it, 15 minutes of meditation, and then the moment I set aside for my personal reflections. From my penthouse on the Upper East Side, I watch the city wake up, the same city that witnessed my transformation from an apparently submissive wife to one of the country's most powerful executives. Today marks a decade as CEO of Atlantic Trust. A decade since I started documenting Richard's fraudulent activities. A decade of building not only a bank but also a legacy. On my desk, next to the laptop, is an old silver photo frame. It's the only memento I kept from those years. The photo shows a dinner at the Matthews house, Richard in the center, me slightly off frame, almost on the sidelines. My polite smile hiding thoughts that no one at the table could imagine. I keep this photo not out of nostalgia, but as a reminder of the power of patience, of the strength found in strategic silence, of the importance of knowing your own worth, even when no one else recognizes it. The phone rings, it's Michael, now the bank's executive vice president. Good morning, Emma. Everything is set for the 10-year celebration. The press has already begun to arrive. Thank you, Michael. I'll be down in 15 minutes. I hang up and walk to the closet. I choose a navy blue suit, impeccably tailored, quietly powerful. Very different from the outfits Richard and Barbara used to choose for me, always trying to make me seem smaller, less significant. As I apply my makeup, I remember the countless mornings preparing to play two completely different roles, the quiet wife at home and the relentless executive at the office. The exhaustion of that double life. The constant calculation to maintain appearances. I look at my reflection in the mirror, determined eyes, the lines that tell stories of challenges overcome. I don't regret the time I spent being invisible. It was my choice, my strategy. The business world, like my marriage with Richard, was a chess game, and I deliberately chose to appear as a pawn while moving the pieces like a queen. In the executive elevator heading to the lobby, I reflect on the unexpected outcomes of these years. How Richard's case became a mandatory study in business ethics courses. How the Silent Voices program grew beyond my initial expectations, now with branches in 12 countries. How my story inspired a bestseller and sparked rumors of a movie adaptation. Even more surprising was the email I received last week, from Richard. After 7 years of silence, he sent a short, almost telegram-like message. I understand now what you did. And why? I don't ask for forgiveness. I only want recognition that, finally, I understand. I didn't reply. Maybe I never will. Some doors, once closed, should remain that way. The lobby of Atlantic Trust is transformed for the celebration. A discreet banner reads, 10 years of visionary leadership, celebrating Emma Wilson. Journalists, executives, politicians, and community leaders mingle, awaiting my arrival. Jennifer approaches as soon as I step out of the elevator. Are you ready? The governor just arrived. I'm always ready, I reply with a smile. Before entering the main hall, I pause briefly and observe the crowd through the glass doors. No one notices me yet, this moment of quiet observation, so familiar to me over the years. The difference is that now, when I walk in, all eyes will be on me. Not as someone's wife or the quiet woman in the corner, but as Emma Wilson, on my own terms. The irony isn't lost on me. My success was largely possible because no one paid enough attention. Because they underestimated the woman who served the coffee and smiled politely. Because they confused silence with submission, calmness with incompetence, patience with passivity. I take a deep breath, straighten my shoulders, and step into the hall. The murmuring quiets. The flashes go off. Smiles turn toward me. I'm no longer the silent CEO. But I will never forget the power I discovered when no one was listening. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like to get access to more stories like this. That is the true legacy I built, not just a successful bank or a mentoring program, but a new narrative about power and perception. A story that will continue to inspire generations of women who, like me, were underestimated, ignored, or silenced. And that, perhaps, is the sweetest